I'm Stumpy Nubs, and today I'm going to show you how to get the most from your card scrapers. A card scraper is one of the most underutilized tools in the modern workshop, mostly because they don't plug in. They're dismissed as old-fashioned in favor of electric sanders that fill our lungs with dust and our noses with boogers. But you should give the humble card scraper a second look. They can save you a lot of work if you learn to sharpen and use them properly. We cover sharpening in a separate video, which you'll find in the June issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal over in the archives at stumpynubs.com. Now let's look at some techniques. A card scraper is actually more like a hand plane than a scraper. We don't want to just scrape, we want to shear the wood fibers. That's why we go to such an effort to create a hook on the scraper's edge. That hook should cut the fibers in the surface of your workpiece, creating fine shavings and leaving behind a glassy surface. If you're only getting dust, you either have to sharpen your scraper or you're not using it properly. That said, you are going to get some dust. It's not going to be all fluffy shavings. But if you're only getting dust, it's time to sharpen. The most common way to use a scraper is to hold it with your thumbs against the center and apply pressure to create a slight bow. Then set the scraper on your workpiece at a forward angle. As you push it across the surface, you can make slight modifications to that angle until you start getting shavings. If you hold your scraper too close to perpendicular to the workpiece, your hooked edge won't be in contact with the wood. Too much angle and that hook will just skip across the surface, creating dust instead of shavings. It won't take long till you get a feel for that proper angle. You'll notice that the center of the scraper is doing all of the work. The corners aren't touching the piece at all. The more of a bend you put in the scraper, the more aggressive the cut will be at the center. This allows you to take heavier shavings when working a certain part of your surface, such as removing tool marks left by a power jointer or planer, or to quickly smooth a surface that would otherwise have required a lot of time working through different grits of sandpaper. But the trade-off is that you'll actually be scooping out the wood, leaving a hollow where you scrape. It might be slight, but with the right finish and light, it can be noticeable. So you may want to begin with a more aggressive cut, but then finish leveling out the entire surface with very little bend at the center. I like to level with a pulling technique that places my fingers along the bottom edge of the scraper, putting very little bend in it. I hold it almost perpendicular to the surface, tilting it just enough to keep it from skipping across as I pull it towards myself. This technique is best done if you've rounded off the corners of your scraper so you won't mar your workpiece. As I work, I'm also noting how the light reflects off the surface. This will reveal the low points that need to be leveled a bit more. As you can see, you don't always have to push a scraper. You can also pull it towards you using your fingertips to create the bend rather than your thumbs. Sometimes it's nice to switch from push to pull when your thumbs get tired. Another common technique is to place the heel of your hand in the center while hooking your fingers over the end. I like this technique because my thumbs tend to get tired quickly. Suppose I have weak thumbs. Using pressure with the heel of your hand makes it easier to bend thicker scrapers. Yes, scrapers come in different thicknesses, so if you're really having trouble bending it in the way that you want, you can try a thinner one. You can also make or purchase jigs to hold your scraper for you. These are adjustable to the amount of bend that you want. The downside is that you have to stop and readjust them if you want to change that bend, as you will do quite often as you work different areas of your work surface. One thing they are nice for is protecting your fingers from burns. As you scrape, the friction will generate a lot of heat and actually become too painful to hold barehanded. Some people place business card size refrigerator magnets on their scrapers to act as a heat sink, and that does help. But how did they do it in the old days, before sandpaper was common and they had no choice but to scrape their projects? Did they just have tougher thumbs? No, their solution was much more obvious. Before they began their project, they sharpened 3 or 4 scrapers. When one became too hot, they just dropped it and picked up another one, and so on. Since each scraper has at least 4 hooked edges, 4 scrapers gave them 16 cutting edges to wear out before they had to go back and resharpen. Plenty to see them through the entire project without stopping. Finally, one of the best reasons for using scrapers is to help you quickly smooth uneven surfaces. Scrapers come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, including curves and hollows, and you can even file profiles into them for cleaning up tear out that your router table left in moldings. There's almost unlimited uses for card scrapers, even in modern workshops. And those that have taken the time to learn how to use and sharpen them are always glad they did. Check out the June 2016 issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal for more tips, including a video about how to sharpen your scrapers. You'll find it in the archives at stumpynubs.com, and we'll see you next time.